just 2 strategies from this master plan where we've done some additional work that is feeding into the master planning process in Karabole. Just as a quick introduction, Karabole district is in the western part of Uganda. We have a population of about 350,000 people. Our population growth is about 2.37%, so by 2030 we expect to have 440,000 people. About 77,000 households and a surface area of 1,814 kilometers square. So what is the master plan? Well, the master plan we're going to share with you today is a plan that for planning, coordination, implementation of the strategic actions that are required to provide everyone in Karabole with access to water and sanitation services by 2030. So this plan is really a framework that kind of breaks down what we have on SDG 6 and localizes it to the district. It clearly explains what does it mean for the district to everyone to have access to water and sanitation services by 2030. And what we'll share with you are just some highlights on the targets, the investments required, some of the partnerships and coordination mechanisms to realize this initiative. So in terms of the rationale of the master plan, why did we go through this process? One is that the planning cycles for WASH in the districts in Uganda have mainly been short cycles of planning, annual cycles of planning, because the local governments receive a conditional grant from the central government, and they receive indicative figures every year. It's about 450 million Uganda shillings, which could be $150,000, maybe in that range, about $150,000 every year. So they get this indicative figure, and their budgets are supposed to feed into that figure. So there is not much innovation that goes into the planning because you have only 150,000 every year. So you probably just do almost the same things we do every year without actually thinking long term, thinking how do we reach those who have not been served. You'll only go in for what that money can do for you. So, and the other thing is that planning has also been heavily influenced by political leadership. So you find that the political leadership, they are so powerful that they influence the allocations, especially when it comes to infrastructure projects. They want to influence that kind of process. So it was necessary to have a long-term plan and get everybody on board to understand and reach a common vision on what it will take to reach everyone with water and sanitation services. Then the other one was about lack of a common vision for investments that were coming in from development partners and also from the local government. Don't really work towards common vision, common targets, and move towards the same direction. So in terms of the process, it was very important for us to start with stakeholder visioning meetings, for us to unpack what is SDG 6 and what does it mean for the districts. So these are meetings that involved technocrats from different departments at the district level, from education, from water, from health. They also involved the political leadership of the district, given their power and influence. Then the other was, in the district we already had what we called a water and sanitation coordination committee. So out of that committee, a smaller task force was created to kind of oversee the master planning process. And this task force also had technocrats and politicians. It was really important for us to bring politicians on board right from the beginning. In the phase of baseline data collection and validation, it seems like one box, but this is something that can take even a year or two, because it involves a lot of data around asset mapping, what assets are there, what's the condition of these assets, doing analysis of the institutional strengthening and mapping, looking at who is in the district and what are they doing, a bit of financial flows, what money is coming into the district, what money are the NGOs bringing in, and then we had what we call learning and coordination meetings for these task teams. And what happened here is really about the discussion on strategies. So we broke down the plan into areas of water, sanitation, institutional wash, and integrated water resource management, and formed sub-working groups that were looking into the issues that were coming from the baseline, looking at these issues and seeing, coming up with a bit of strategies and saying what kind of targets can we set. And then the other process was the process of compiling the master plan, costing, compiling the master plan. And then the final but most highly significant process was what we call here the legislative process of the master plan. This was a process where the district local council passed the master plan. In Uganda we use passing, but what term would we use here? Maybe. Yeah, something like approving the master plan as a formal document of the district local government. And this was possible because we had politicians working, representative of politicians working in this group. So they had the responsibility of talking to their fellow politicians of the district council to make sure that this master plan was officially passed by the district local government. So briefly, that is what the process was about. Then in the master plan, we try to, like I said, we try to break down water and sanitation, integrated water resource management, IWRM. But for purpose of this presentation, we'll look at water and sanitation. So we try to break down some of the, to unpack what we mean by improved water and sanitation services. We define them at two levels. One is improved services which are accessible on premises, that's pipe water, or within 13 minutes round trip, available when needed and free from contamination. Then the second one was around safely managed water services. But one thing that you'll see later in the discussion is that as much as the SDGs talk about safely managed services, we looked at it from two sides. A district like Karabole with this kind of funding, we looked at reaching some people through pipe networks and reaching another category of the population through hand pumps to have a balance in the technologies. And some of the gaps that we had in relation to water were issues around access, which was about 58%. The district had just been split into two, and somehow Karabole remained with the part that had the lower access rate, so it dropped to about 58%. About 44 villages did not have access to an improved water source. Reliability was low, about 45%. There was a high level of contamination of water sources. Only 36% had E. coli levels that were acceptable. 64% were really not good. And the willingness to pay for water, still very low. Only 7% were consistently paying for water. And then an issue with water user committees. For sanitation still, we also looked at the 4 different levels. Safely managed sanitation services, basic, limited, unimproved, and open defecation. And the way the plan is designed is that it's designed in such a way that there's movement upwards. Though as you'll see later, reaching safely managed is a very big challenge because you're talking about sewer systems and what have you. So as we'll share in the targets for safely managed are really low, and the biggest proportion of the population is really aiming at reaching basic level of access. So in terms of sanitation challenges, there was an issue around construction, poor construction of latrines that are not drainable, then awareness of different options, open defecation, capacity of the private sector, especially on issues like emptying another process along the sanitation chain. Then the institutional arrangements also for fecal sludge management are also an area we needed to focus on. So now, in terms of the targets that we set with the task team, the one like I mentioned, we we focused mainly on a big proportion of the population is around basic, as you can see.